there, Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video. Welcome to episode 72 of Ask Bossk's Bounty. This is, of course, the weekly series that drops every Sunday. It's my Q&A series, so if you do have a question for next week's episode, be sure to leave it in the comment section below. And I do apologise if I did not get around to your question this week. Please keep persevering, put it in the comment section below, and hopefully you'll be featured next week. Before we get on to this week's questions, I just want to say a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Last night we had our first ever Patreon supporter live stream, and it was awesome meeting some of you guys on camera and discussing Star Wars for nearly 2 hours. So thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for the support. And if any of you guys out there want to join the Patreon, I'll leave the link in the description below. I also want to congratulate the winners of the giveaway that was held on the Discord server that I belong to. The link for that Discord server is in the comment section below. Some familiar names won some of those prizes, so congratulations. One more thing just before we do get onto the questions, I just want to give you proof that children still get excited about Star Wars. I found this bit of footage on my son's channel, Little Bossk, and this just makes me laugh every time I see it. So here you go.
I got Blue Snoke!
No way. You did.
So that was him there getting very, very excited about getting a Blue Snoke in the Micro Force collection. That video footage is about 3 years old now. He was like 4 or 5 back then. But that's awesome. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's get on to the first question. Miles Hooch, who is one of my Patreon supporters, thank you for the question. He says, "Hey Bossk, have you been to Coleville before in search of the buried treasure? Is it far from you?" So for the people that aren't aware, Coleville is where Palitoy was based, and Palitoy was the UK company that had the license for Star Wars back in the 70s and early 80s. They made the figures that Kenner made, essentially. And the rumour has it is that when they shut up shop, they buried all of the leftover stock in some landfill or something, and people have been hunting for it ever since. Apparently it does exist. There are Palitoy employees or ex-employees say that it does exist. I haven't ever gone and looked for myself, and Coleville is near Leicester, which is probably about, I don't know, maybe a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive from where I am. So not too close, but I do want to go there and visit it one day. 21st Century Dude says, "Congratulations on the 15k subscribers, Bossk. Thank you very much, my friend. I have a non-action figure related question for you next week. Do you display your John Tyler Christopher designed Star Wars comics in any special way?" So this is the most recent one. It is the Princess Leia Organa in combat poncho. It's for Star Wars number 12. This is the John Tyler Christopher variant covers designed in the style of Kenner action figures. I absolutely love these. There is probably almost 100 of these now. So they're very, very difficult to display. Unfortunately, with the room that I have at present, they are all in a white long box, bagged and boarded. But one day I wish I could display them, and I would hope maybe to have them a little bit like I have my vintage collection figures on the wall. But I do realise that may take up a bit of space, so I'll have to think about it, to be honest. At the moment, unfortunately, they're just boxed, but man, they are fantastic. Before we go into the next question, I did just want to mention about the Black Series Deluxe Boba Fett, which I do have here. A lot of people in the comments of my review, which if you haven't seen already, the link for that will be in the description below, said, you know, put the helmet in the hot water and it will sort it out, and it did, and I knew it would, but I think my point was in the review is that ultimately we shouldn't have to be doing that sort of thing with figures. We shouldn't have to be getting them out of the packaging and having to put them in boiling water to correct the plastics. But it did sort the helmet out. It looks a lot better. Still not happy with the plastic cape. I prefer the soft goods cape, and I must admit I'm biased, so I prefer the all-round look of the vintage collection one anyway. But thanks for all those suggestions. A couple of questions about the Clone Wars here, and we have Nivaldo Rodriguez, and he says, question for next week: now that we are getting Ahsoka series, do you think we will only get Ahsoka figures from the show, or is there a chance of some new Clone Wars vintage collection figures? I think the Clone Wars isn't dead yet in terms of Hasbro. I think we're going to get some more. We're getting Ahsoka herself and Maul, so I think we'll hopefully see some figures to accompany those. We're going to need a 332nd Clone Trooper for sure, and more about that in the next question. But yeah, I don't think they're done. I think the Ahsoka series will have lots of new characters in it that they'll have to do, rather than ones maybe from the Clone Wars. Of course, there will be some that cross over, but there'll be lots of new ones to explore as well. And Thomas Rogers says, question for next week: do you think by releasing Ahsoka and Maul, Hasbro will make a Siege on Mandalore playset? Man, that would be fantastic, would it not? But unfortunately, they can't really make a playset without the figures. And as I mentioned just there in the previous question, we definitely need that 332nd clone trooper, the Ahsoka clone trooper. We probably need some super commandos for Maul's army. There's lots of things that we kind of need figure-wise before you have a playset. Now, I know Hasbro have a history of releasing playsets without the figures, but at least older figures existed for them. You know, you could go back perhaps and get some older figures from your collection. But with the Siege of Mandalore, they aren't really there already. We need that 332nd Ahsoka clone trooper. Joe Christopher says, great video, Tim. If you could have any figure from anything Star Wars, from games to films to series to comics, what would it be? Man, that's just a huge pool of figures that you could choose from, and it will probably change every single day that I think about that answer. But right now, after seeing this image that my friend Daniel Chart sent me, and I do apologise to the person that put this together, I do not know who this is from, so if anyone wants to let me know in the comments, I will leave a link to their work. But this is the Luke Skywalker from the end of Mandalorian, and the card back and the figure for this looks fantastic. So if you ask me today, right now, what I would want in the vintage collection, it is that Luke Skywalker. I think it looks awesome. Dan Von Carr says, question for next week, what's your favourite Luke head sculpt from all of the photoreal versions? Now, I do think all of them do look pretty similar, but I've got to say the one that's on the Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper, I just love this. I don't think you can top that. For the period in time of Mark Hamill where he wore this outfit in Star Wars, I think they've got that absolutely nailed. And the hair and everything. And I think the reason for it is that the hair is now a separate piece to the head. So they can kind of use the head and then just put a different hairstyle on him for his different times in the movie. But this one for me is fantastic. I absolutely love this figure. Resistance X-Wing Pilot says, question for next week, what would you say is the best 3.75 inch R2-D2? My favourite is the one from the Last Jedi 5 POA line. Well detailed, no light piping, and the booster rockets are really nice while not detracting from the original figure at all. I think that this is the one you're talking about. I'm not 100% sure. My one's legs are a little bit different colour to the body, which I don't particularly like, but I think this is the one from the Last Jedi line. The rockets go in those little holes there. I could be wrong. I may still have the rockets somewhere. But for me, I'm not a massive expert on the R2 units and which ones have come before. I've got obviously the ones in the vintage collection, but for me, looking at the ones I've got, I like this one. It seems to be the right scale. It seems to be a bit bigger than the others. I like the dome, and the centre eye seems the right size. Paintwork looks fantastic. So for me, it would be this build a droid factory one. But I've got no doubt it is probably repacked in other lines. But let me know in the comments if you know. William Randall says, question for next week, do you think Hasbro will ever make a Black Series Biker Scout helmet? Man, they've got to do that. I think it's one of the most iconic helmets in all of Star Wars. It's a massive gap in that range of helmets. If you're interested in knowing which helmets they have released so far, I do have a checklist on my website, which I will leave a link for in the description below. That shows you all of the ones that they've done so far, and the Biker Scout is just a massive gap. I'm sure they'll get round to it one day, especially since they've been in the Mandalorian. Martin Footer says, question for next week, with the omission of the red digital bar on the new Return of the Jedi Boba, do you think Hasbro will correct this on the restock? So yeah, the Return of the Jedi Vintage Collection figure does not have the little thing on his chest sculpted in. Now, funnily enough, the Black Series one does, but it's not painted red, so it doesn't really show up either. So this one will probably needs it painting, and this one needs it sculpting in. In terms of it being in time for a restock, I doubt it, because I think it would actually need to be a resculpt. They'll have to resculpt that whole chest piece and actually sculpt it in there. Maybe the restock could have it painted on, but I don't think people will be happy with that either. It's a glaring omission from the figure, and it is unfortunate, but look at him. He still looks fantastic, right? Wayne Russell says, congrats on the 15k subs, Tim. Thank you, Wayne. Question for next week. Do you think we will get a Boba Fett with his new green armour on a Mando card and also Fennec Shan figure? Top class stuff as always, mate. Thank you very much, Wayne. I've got a feeling that we'll see the Mando figure on a Book of Boba Fett card back. That's how I think we'll see him. I don't think they'll bother bringing that figure out on a Mando card back. I think he's probably done now in The Mandalorian. He's got his own show. And I think Hasbro will hopefully, now don't pin this on me, but hopefully they will get that Boba Fett figure out in time for when the show drops. Maybe at the end of the year, we will see Boba Fett on a Book of Boba Fett card, which would be fantastic. And it looks to me that Fennec Shand is going to be his sidekick, so get her out as well on that card back. Fantastic. Stephen Angel says, Q&A question, do you have anything in your collection that essentially is an investment, meaning you got it knowing it would skyrocket in value in hopes of selling it at such time? If so, what is it? No, I don't have anything in my collection that I bought just because I wanted to sell it 3-4 years later. That's not why I would do that. There have been cases where I've bought something because I kind of predicted in my own mind that the value may go up and I want to get it before the value goes up, if you like, you know. A good example of that recently is the vintage Warwick figure, the Ewok. He's from the last 17 from 1985, and I think I got him in November, somewhere around there, for about £80, £85, and even back then I thought, I'm overpaying for this figure, it's just too much. But now, just yesterday, one went for £185 loose, and that's just crazy money. So I'm glad that I got it when I did, and that's kind of it for me. I don't now think, great, I'm going to sell him because now he's worth £100 more than I paid for him, so it was a great investment, if you like. In 2 years' time, he may come down in price, and then you would say that maybe I've lost money, but that's not why I do it. I buy things because with the fear that they may be too expensive in a year's time and I won't be able to afford them. Dr. Finn says, big fan of the channel. Do you think Hasbro will reconsider how they're treating the 3.75 inch scale in the future, especially with all the new shows coming out? It would be smart to go back to how things used to be. I think Hasbro and Patrick have been quoted as saying that it'll never be the same as like 2009, 2010. It'll never go back to those times. However, with all the new stuff that's coming out and all the new shows and films, they've got to put more out than they are. Otherwise, it's just going to be a huge backlog of characters and figures that they're going to need to get to. And I think collectors will just get annoyed if they just can't get the figures that they want. I mean, it's bad enough as it is now. If you've got 2 or 3 new shows coming out, it'll be impossible for them to keep up. So they're going to have to ramp it up, but it just won't be as big as it was back in the day. Blue Balls. That's an interesting name. Tim, question for next week. What is the most expensive vintage collection figure? Appreciate that rare vintage figures like the Vinyl Cape Jawa have sold for silly money, but is there an equivalent expensive figure in the vintage collection range? There is nothing like in terms of the monetary value of a Vinyl Cape Jawa, but if you look at some of the figures recently, Ahsoka is the one, isn't it? What's she, VC 102, I think, something like that. That figure now, you know, we've been seeing that going for like $500-600, which is just crazy for a figure that's just part of the line. You've got variants and things like the Canadian Yoda, which I can't show you at the moment because it's off for grading. That one has always been quite expensive, but Ahsoka recently in the last month has just gone through the roof, and I would probably say that now is the most expensive figure, maybe even more than the mini cards that you got in the Death Star Revenge set. Fortuna Bibb says, great vid as always. Question for next week. What vintage sculpt do you think Hasbro should work on next? Mine would be the Scout Trooper and Protocol Droid. They could get a dozen uses from them. Yep, they certainly could. We definitely need a new Scout Trooper in my opinion. Some people think that the one we've got will do. I personally think they need to rework that one from the ground up and give us a definitive version. And that goes for the one that I'm going to suggest, which is the Clone Trooper. I feel that, as I mentioned earlier in the video, the 332nd Clone Trooper, that's basically a Phase 2 501st painted with the Ahsoka orange head. If they're going to do that, they should just give us a brand new clone sculpt, and then they could revisit all of the other ones. 212, 501st. Give us them all with a brand new definitive, very much like they've done with the Rogue One Stormtrooper. They've used that for other figures already with the Remnant Stormtrooper and the Shadow Trooper. And that's what they could do with the Clone Trooper. And that would be my pick. Diego Sandoval says, hello Big Bossk, besides bounty hunting, what else do you do for a living to afford collecting so many action figures? Well, believe it or not, this YouTube lark isn't my primary job. It's just something I do for fun. Okay, it, you know, gives me a little bit of extra cash every month from YouTube ads and what have you, all you lovely people watching my videos. But no, I have a full-time 9 to 5:30 job you know, 5 days a week. And essentially I'm a digital marketer. Basically, I work on websites and ranking websites in Google search engines, things like that. That's my job. I enjoy it. It's helped me in YouTube a little bit, I guess, and it's helped me certainly with my own actual website, bosksbounty.com. But yeah, that's what I do, and I have to do that to support my family, because YouTube alone wouldn't even touch the surface of supporting a wife and 2 children and running a household. But thanks for the question, my friend. Alright then guys, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching as usual, and thank you very much to all my Patreon supporters once again for being on the live stream with me last night. I had an absolute blast. It was great seeing you all. Everybody else that's watching, thank you so much for the support, watching my videos. Drop a like down below if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new, and we shall see you on the next video.